light. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start recording. A community development financial institution providing lending, investing, and community innovation services. If you haven't received information on our new name and would like more information, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions directly, or I can send you some information after the session. So again, we're delighted to have you all join us. I love the fact that we have some people who are able to make it to each of the sessions. I think it really helps with our discussions and everyone getting to know each other. That's really one of the main things that I was trying to accomplish with a series of this type. So of course, we're going to be recording the session, and I'll send this information out to you guys later. Go ahead and put things in the chat if you have a question, if the speaker or someone else is talking. But I think, Melanie, you really want some discussion, right, throughout the session. So, raise your hand, and I'll kind of moderate and let her know when someone has a question. So, but without further ado, let me introduce one of our remarkable speakers who will be sharing her insights with us today. Please welcome Miss Melanie Protti-Lawrence with us today. Melanie is the co-owner of Lawrence Brothers, Inc. It's a third-generation family-owned and operated metal manufacturer located in Bluefield, Virginia. She and her husband, Fernando Protti, have spearheaded the company's strategic growth and diversification over the past 15 years and have led LBI into some of the most prosperous years yet. With 50 years of excellence in manufacturing and a high standard of quality, LBI serves several industries, including motive power, energy, underground mining, ground support, and warehousing. Melanie and Fernando have woven the history of excellence into their leadership philosophy as they've shifted the company culture towards one of trust, inclusion, teamwork, and accountability. And I can personally attest for that. It is very apparent there. Melanie holds a dual BA in English and Spanish and an LLM in international law. If I said that wrong, sorry, Melanie. And international relations as well. Having lived in 5 countries and traveled around the world, Melanie considers it an honor and a challenge to have returned to her roots in Southwest Virginia and continue the family legacy. She and Fernando are continuously striving to better serve members of the LBI team, their community, and the broader Central Appalachian region. And that is the truth. They are involved in all kinds of things, and Melanie takes and divvies out her time in organizations in the community and in her children's education, all kinds of good stuff. And she's a good friend of mine, and we're neighbors. We live here in Bluefield together. So I'm very, very happy that she could join us today. Take it away, Melanie.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, and thanks to all of you for being a part of this webinar today. I definitely would like to have, an open, engaging conversation. I feel like we can all learn something from one another. I'm sure I'll have some takeaways from each of you, and I hope that you will as well in talking about effective communication and assertiveness for women and minority business owners. Certainly, we know that there are a number of obstacles that are out there. So what we'll talk about today is how to overcome some of those obstacles. We'll talk a good bit about confidence and how to exude confidence and tamp down or overcome that negative self-talk and self-doubt that we all have from time to time. Every single human on this planet, and most definitely, I think, every single business leader, male or female. But we're going to focus on us females, right? So, one thing that is really tough, I think, often is to earn respect. That can be a struggle in your work environment, especially if it is a male-dominated work environment. A little bit of background on our business, manufacturing, obviously is typically a male-dominated environment. When my grandfather started the business back in the mid-70s, it was primarily, well, it was solely for underground coal mining at that point. So that's also a very, very male-dominated environment, and one that when I plunged myself into the role that I'm in, I didn't even think about, honestly. And I started kind of getting slapped with it as I attended events or went to different conferences. And I think probably most prominently was going to the coal show here in Bluefield, West Virginia. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that, but the first year that I went was probably back in 2008, and it was a tough year for coal, but business was definitely still booming, and one of maybe 10 females in a 1,000 plus attended event. So definitely got some looks, but we're here to talk about how to overcome some of that, and to keep that negative self-talk from impacting or taking a blow to your confidence. We're going to talk about some assertiveness techniques and how to build relationships so that you can work towards your full potential. And we'll find that those relationships are one of the most important thing when it comes to being a business leader, as well as just being a female in a male-dominated environment. You'll be able to network those so that you'll have a stronger voice, right? There's strength in numbers for sure. Next slide, BJ. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of effective communication. I mean, all of us as females understand that from one walk of life or another, whether it's as a mother, as a working mother or a working female, or just living here in Southwest Virginia, right? You know that you have to be able to effectively communicate in order to just live on a day-to-day basis. So, but one of the things, of course, in business is that's going to enable you to have more satisfied clients. You're building trust, building a rapport and understanding with clients. One way that I feel like effective communication has been able to transition our culture here at Lawrence Brothers is to always communicate with our employees. So mostly blue collar workers here. And, you know, I take the nuanced dynamic of the COVID pandemic, which I guess we all talk about things with regard to pre-COVID, post-COVID. I think we're still probably in the midst of it, but during those times, you know, our guys didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what to anticipate. They didn't know whether we'd close, whether we'd stay open. So we made a habit of every week we would have a employee-wide meeting, and we had around 60 employees at that time, and we would gather in the parking lot right behind me here out these windows, and we would spread out, and we would just basically have a big company-wide communication circle, right? A conversation. And that really, I think, developed rapport and developed trust and built that understanding between management and the rest of our LBI team with regard to what to expect, what their concerns were, what their fears were, and how to allay those fears and address those fears moving forward. So that definitely led to improved relationships, both from the management team and quality teams down to the guys working production on the floor. That definitely deepened the connections and improved morale, workplace morale overall. You know, if you're talking to one another side by side as you're working, and you know a little bit of something about that person, chances are you're going to be able to have their back, right? You're going to be able to have a more effective workplace with them. And you'll be better able to resolve conflict, which happens more often than you would think in the manufacturing world. We have a joke that that welders, which of course is one of the skilled trades that we employ, that welders tend to be some of the most dramatic blue collar workers. They like to chit chat. You always know which one you can go out there and spread the word if you need something to spread really quickly. So that's also a means of effective communication, but there's a lot of conflict resolution that has to happen out there. Next slide, please, BJ.
Sorry, Melanie, there's like a little delay. There we go. Got it. Yep.
Okay, no problem. So let's talk about assertiveness and how to be assertive. I think that sometimes people confuse, and especially women, we short sell ourselves, I believe, too often, and we confuse assertiveness with aggressiveness. So certainly there's a fine line, I believe, but really when you're being assertive, all you're doing is standing up for your rights, expressing your feelings in an open and honest way, obviously an appropriate way based on what environment you're in, but directly. And in a way that's not accusatory or that's not, trampling on the rights of others. That's something that I feel like we actually are teaching a lot of our guys, especially our younger guys coming out of high school or coming out of a trade school or a secondary education, how to speak up for themselves and how to recognize their value. So it's a bit of we've flipped the script a little bit because a lot of us are women here in our management team, teaching these young men mostly how to stand up for themselves and how to be assertive, but to do so in a way that's respectful and appropriate. You're welcome, Nadine. Obviously, you see that's needed. Does anybody have any questions about assertiveness, or maybe, and I would love to hear about some examples of maybe where you've tried to employ that and you've been successful or you've been unsuccessful, and we can brainstorm on that a little bit. Does anybody have any stories they want to share?
So I will tell you, I work in the construction industry. So, girl, I'm hearing you and I'm feeling you. Um, and it's really funny at this whole conversation. I was in a group of women the other day, and they were all entrepreneur women, and I felt very awkward because I am in a male-dominated industry, and so I communicate with them a very certain way. And so when I got in the room with all these women, I was like, I don't know how to do this. And so I was actually talking to them about, the insecurity I had and how I knew how to be assertive and like large and in charge when I was talking to men. But when I started talking to women, it was a different experience for me. So I find it very interesting how you're phrasing these things. And I'm like, yeah, I got so much to learn.
Well, hey, I mean, that's what life's about, right? I mean, we're learning every single day. And I think I definitely understand that. It can sometimes be when you're in a group of entrepreneur women or women who are like yourself, right? Who are leading. It can be oftentimes more intimidating than you are, than you were in your comfort. You were in your comfort zone when you're speaking with men and having to assert yourself, but maybe you haven't had to do that so much with women. And hey, let's face it, let's be very honest. Women oftentimes can be catty. Oftentimes they can be ugly. And I hate to say that, men as well, but I do feel like with men, they're kind of, what you get is what you see is what you get. With women, you're sometimes second guessing whether that's the case. But I think that some of the points that we'll address today will help you, Nadine, and we'll show you that while your verbiage and the way you handle yourself and your body language may change, at the end of the day, you're just walking in with that confidence, right? And we'll go over some tools for how to exude confidence as well. You want to go to the next slide, BJ? So I wanted to link assertiveness with effective communication, why that's so important. And I found this this slide here with the link between interpersonal and intrapersonal, and then of course the cognitive, the skill set that you bring to the table. So when you're talking about interpersonal, that's the internal dialogue, which is actually the most important thing when it comes to being assertive as well as exuding confidence. So that's something that can be conscious or subconscious. And obviously it's an invaluable tool for self-comprehension and for self-development. So one thing that I do to be sure that I'm doing my work on the interpersonal side is I have a habit of feeding myself positivity. And that's very difficult sometimes. Sometimes when you've got a million different things coming at you as a working woman, as a working mother, you don't have time for that. But I try to squeeze it very intentionally into the nooks and crannies. I'm sure most of you women spend a good bit of time in your car. One thing that I do is I find some really uplifting or educational podcasts, and instead of, I'll take a break from listening to music and I'll put that in and be sure to listen to that. Actually, I have a 15-year-old son that when I pick him up from school, of course, he has an array of complaints or negativity that he wants to bring into the car. And I always have this one podcast on. It's called We Can Do Hard Things. And I'll share that with you guys in the comments. And he hates to see that up on my screen in my car. He does not want to listen to it, but it's a group of powerful lesbian women who are just talking about how we can do hard things. And they bring on different therapists or athletes or women from a variety, and men from a variety of walks of life. And they just kind of share their insight into how to overcome the daily struggles of life, not just as a woman, but it is focused on that. So I make him listen to that with me. But that's one way that I help to feed the positivity into my mind. And that's so important on the intrapersonal level. When it comes to interpersonal, of course, that's the communication, the outward communication, right? The communication you're having with two or more people. And that's the relationships that you're building and the points of view, the different points of view that you're trying to understand. Obviously, we're not always surrounded with like-minded individuals. We can't exist in a vacuum, right? So we're constantly trying to understand and learn from one another. And kudos to all of you women that are on this call, because that's exactly what we're doing here. Next slide, BJ. So I'm not going to read through all of this, but I wanted to address some of the, I think, most prominent, most prevalent challenges that women are faced, especially in business and as minorities. So definitely people stereotype. I was actually listening to this podcast, to a webinar the other day, which again, I'll share with you guys because I think that it was really impactful and resonated with me. But we are actually, which is so hard to, I think, grasp, but it makes a lot of sense. We all have a gendered notion of what confidence is. And that notion, based on social norms and cultural biases, is biased towards men. I think the statistic was that when women are applying for a new role, they are unlikely to apply for it unless they are 90 to 100% already prepared for it based on the requirements or the recommendation in that job description. Whereas men, they could be 50 or 60% and they're just ready to throw in their application. So we need to flip that, right? We need to unlearn that notion of confidence that is associated with the male and realize that we have all the reason in the world to be confident. And let's go out there. I challenge each of you with your next job to go out there and apply. Don't wait until you're ready. Don't wait until you see that you have 90% of the qualifications. Part of the qualifications are learning in a practical environment, right? So don't allow people to pigeonhole you and base their assumption or their perspective of you on gender, ethnicity, or anything else. Microaggressions, and I would love to hear any stories that you guys have around these challenges, and let's talk through, how to overcome some of them. But subtle insults, right? Ways that men or women do intentionally or unintentionally to erode the confidence and the morale, which of course leads to a lowered level of productivity. I think that can happen, anywhere from inside the office to out on the production floor, to in your home, right? That's something that it's key to observe so that you can understand how those power dynamics work and then take back that power as a female leader. Part of what can be so powerful there is the relationships that you're fostering. So you want to foster relationships, not just to have allies and have other females that are on your side, but to have an accomplice. So the difference between an ally and accomplice would be someone who has your back and is going to stand up for you when someone is speaking for you or speaking about you, whether it's personal, professional, whatever. For example, Billy, I see Billy as an accomplice for me. I know that we are like-minded. We share a lot of the same philosophies, and we have a lot of differences as well. But I know if she sees opportunities out there that I would be well suited for, she's going to speak up in a room of other people and mention my name. And I would do the same for her. When it comes to challenges, you want to have someone, a network of, and it can be males as well, but a network of like-minded individuals inside your workplace, so that if there is some type of discrimination or microaggression, some challenge, that you can be a collected voice, and you can go together and speak with management about it. Does anybody have anything they want to, any stories they want to share on challenges that they faced, either in work or personal life?
I have one, Melanie. If nobody else has one, I can't see anybody else coming on. Okay, because I don't want to take their time. But I just I have a great example when I worked at a locality, and there's, most of the leadership, the council members were men that were 60, maybe 65 and older, right?
Right.
And so they would walk upstairs, and I don't know how many of you guys have seen the show Mad Men, right? It's like set back in the 50s, and they wear the hat and the coats, and there's all the secretaries, like that. It was literally like that. I really felt like they walked in with their hat and their coat and expected me to like take it from them. Every single woman in the building, they did not know their titles. They were all called secretaries.
Yes.
Which is not a bad thing, right? It's just like a little microaggression. What I came to realize was that they were like, it was still a compliment to him, from him to me. It's just that he hadn't taken the time to recognize the changes in the world, right? So in order, you got it, but that takes a whole lot, right? When you're working in your day, to be like, not get upset about it and recognize what's really happening. So anyway.
Oh, I think that's a great story, and a great segue into, that is why it is so important for us to build on our confidence and establish those positions of leaderships or positions of community involvement, so that we can, I don't know a better way to say it, but force them to recognize those changes in the world and force them to come to terms with them. I feel like I've had to do that with my father on a number of different levels. And is it uncomfortable? Absolutely. Yes. But if we're not out there doing it, then no one's out there doing it.
Well, Melanie, not one female or woman in that building, and there were mostly women there, not ever did any, including me. I didn't know how to speak up and say, actually, my title is, and this is what I do.
Right.
So I should have.
Well, and that, I mean, it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. And it's something that you have to learn. And I think for me, so much of how I've learned that is, again, what I'm feeding myself, the type of books that I'm reading, the type of media that I'm consuming. And I try to consume very little. I try to limit my social media time, anything that is going to take away. And I'm not saying that you can't have fun. I'm not saying that you can't have downtime, but anything that's going to take away from you further growing your mind and moving into a more progressive mindset about how we're impacting the world, the impact that we can have on the world as women, you're taking away from the time to do that. You know what I'm saying? From those learning opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Nadine.
And Billy, the interesting thing about what you were just saying is we have to learn how to say it, but that also goes back to what you were saying, Melanie, about the fact that we have to say it in a way, and I hate to say this, so that they don't go, oh, she's just being a bitch.
Right.
And coming across in a way that's confident and in charge. But, at the end of the day, if they say that about me, that's their problem. It's not mine. I try to be civil. I try to do all the things that I'm supposed to do, to be a good leader, to be all these other things. But it's going to happen. It is, especially these older guys who have done this for I've done this longer than you've been alive. Cool. Awesome. That means nothing.
No, means nothing. Just because you've done it since kingdom, since the 1920s doesn't mean that we're going to keep doing it the same way. No, you're
My
right.
favorite thing to say then is also, you would think in all that time you would have gotten it right.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
That's a great comeback.
That's a
And
microaggression, right?
that's right.
Right?
And sometimes you do have to
Man.
counter it with something that makes them think a little bit, something that sticks in their mind, right?
Yeah. But also at the same time, having these allies and these accomplices, I love that term, by the way, so stealing it. I had a guy that I work with their company a lot, and his dad is from the old guard. And he was actually having the conversation like, we have got to get these old guard out of place so that we can start having the type of companies that we want to have. And his dad walks up as if on cue, and he introduces me as, this is Nadine. She owns a construction company. She da da da. And his dad goes, isn't it about time that women aren't really classified as minorities anymore? And I kind of took a moment, I took a beat to kind of take that in. And my friend, his son, said, I'm sorry, Dad, how many other female construction owners do you know? Until you know a whole lot, I think it's still a minority and we should treat them as such with respect. And I was like, yes.
And that's
Yeah.
that's an ally, right? That's an accomplice, somebody who's going
Yeah.
to stick up for you and express your views as well. So anyhow, I think that I want to just comment on the comment that you made, Nadine, and I pulled this from another webinar that I listened to. If someone labels you as a bitch, all you can do is receive it and take it as a compliment. And believe me, that has taken decades of practice for me to accept that, because whatever negativity that they're saying about you speaks so much more to them and about their character than it does to you. And that is a vulnerable response, right? That's a vulnerable, you have somehow hit them where it hurts, right? Or you've hit them on a point that is, that damages them, right? You've hit it on a way where it's made them uncomfortable, so that they came back with something that was emotional. And I think that is really where we can hold our power as women, is to engage that emotional intelligence that we have. You can continue to be empathetic. You can continue to be nurturing, kind, compassionate, and still be a leader and still be a boss bitch, right? Still be an assertive, confident woman. And you're not going to, just like I'm. So you might as well go out there and just be you and be the best you can be. They're going to talk about you one way or the other. And again, that's something that Billy has helped me kind of get into my head. And it's a lot of that, the reading and the podcasts and the different things that we feed our mind. I know that sounds silly, and it sounds like I keep saying that, but it really has been truly impactful for me. And one thing that we have to realize, that when we're overcoming self-doubt, of course it's hard. Confidence is not a steady state. You're going to have moments, you're going to have times, you're going to have days and weeks that you don't feel confident. But we have to choose to create it. And sometimes you have to force it a little bit, right? You have to get up in the morning and pull out that toolkit of resources that you have to calm your mind and calm your body. Or maybe for some people, it's taking a run and getting that adrenaline out so that you can get out some of that negativity or some of that imposter syndrome that you have living inside you, and then create that confidence, make space for the confidence. And that's one thing I'd like to challenge each of you guys with today, is to make a commitment to take daily steps to feed your mind positivity, whether it's, reading a good book, reading a chapter of a book, listening to a portion of a podcast, making daily affirmations. Try to make 3 daily affirmations that you repeat to yourself in the mirror each morning as you're getting ready, or in the shower each morning. I will say there is something to be said for looking yourself in the eye and making those affirmations. We don't have to wait until we feel that our confidence has taken a hit to do that. Be proactive with that, right? When it comes to discrimination, this is another reason that we have to learn how to be assertive in our communication, because it's going to happen. And the only way to deal with it is to deal with it head on. And again, let's go back to those networks and those relationships that you're building where others have your back. That's going to enhance your sense of belonging in the workplace, and in turn that fosters confidence. So if you know that you've got a group of 2 or 3 individuals, male or female, who are like-minded, who may or may not have faced a discrimination based on, I don't know, height, size, style, weight, political association, whatever it may be, you guys can go together and formulate a plan to speak in numbers, right? To speak as a collective voice to management or to the ownership or to whomever you may need to be. You need to leverage that network. Next slide. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share or any comments?
And I am sorry, I keep talking, and I could talk
That's
to
what I
you
want.
seriously for hours about all of this. But I find it very important that we're also that resource for other women, because I
Exactly.
have had other women that I've worked with that are like, oh, and they won't tell me the way that they were treated on a job site. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I need you to understand that what they did was wrong. You are not changing anything about yourself. I am going to take it on as your supervisor to go take care of this and to show that I am behind you and that I support you, and talk to them about how they are in the right to feel their feelings
Right.
about all of this and all of that. So I find that my job is also to help those other women learn to step up and say, nope, absolutely not.
That's right. No, and kudos to you, Nadine, for doing that, because it's not just about propelling yourself forward and trying to, climbing the corporate ladder, but it's reaching back, right? It's reaching back and extending your hand to bring other women forward with you. Men have been doing it for centuries. So it's past
God,
time for
no.
us women to be doing it.
And
But can I say one thing?
conversations like,
No, go ahead, Amy. Sorry.
no,
I just wanted to say, I think for women, what I have found is we are probably more likely to speak up for the other people than we are for ourselves. So where men would have to like consciously think about speaking up for someone else, we're really easy to do that. We'll do that in an instant. But to speak up for yourself is almost the bigger challenge.
That's true. But
Yeah.
we've got to overcome that, right? We have to
Right.
flip the script on that.
That's right.
So in terms of building confidence and self-esteem, just a couple of hacks, a couple of tricks of how we do that. So to silence that inner critic, we all have that. We all have that voice that is negative self-talk. We have to learn to identify those. And it can be something as small as, oh my God, I can't believe you burnt the toast again. I can't believe how in the world would I think that I could wear my white pants? My butt is way too big to be wearing white pants. So flip that. You have to totally flip it around. I don't know where I came up with those, just random things. But you have to flip that and say, hey, look at me. I am feeling good about myself. I'm going to rock these white pants, Or, hey, let's scrape the burnt part off of the toast and move forward. But you have to identify those scripts that constantly run in your head. And I think that you'll find if you start really self-reflecting and paying attention to your internal dialogue, that you'll see that it's a lot of times the same thing. So it's not going to be 10 different things, probably. It's going to be 3 or 4 different things that in certain situations, your mind tends to go to that negativity. So rewire them. For me, I find that it helps if I actually write it down. So I have a gratitude journal, and I will sit. That's where I put my affirmations and where I put the flipping the script on the negative self-talk. And one thing that I also find impactful is you find that anchor story. So you find a time when you felt like you were at your best, you were in your element, you were a badass, and you just felt like confidence was literally oozing out of your pores. And then you have to kind of recreate that. So cipher through your memories as you're, riding down the road in silence or taking a shower or whatever, and find a time. And then you bring yourself back to that when you need it, that negative self-talk is trying to take over. And that goes for, the second point here in finding your power poses. So you don't have to stand here and be like Wonder Woman with your hands on your hips. I personally love to stand like that. And sometimes people will ask me if I'm trying to stand like Wonder Woman, but that's a power pose for me. I just feel good when I stand like that. And you want to breathe into it. I know this sounds so maybe new age or whatever. That would be what my mom would tell me, that it was a new age. I don't know what dynamic or way to think, but confident body language has a huge impact when it comes to effective communication. You always want to make eye contact. You always want to speak up in a meeting, whether it's just to say, oh, I agree, that's a great point. I'd love to see how we work toward that. Or I disagree. Could we look at it from this perspective? But you always want to try to speak up in every meeting, make yourself heard, make yourself seen, but do it in a way that is confident. So you don't want to look down and say this. And that's another thing. I just heard this on a podcast the other day. When you're in a meeting as a female, never take notes. And that's something I'm challenging myself to do, but that's very hard because I'm a note taker. But when you're taking notes, you are disengaged from the person that's speaking. You are non-participatory, which then gives them allowance to overlook you, right? So you don't want to be the note taker. Don't volunteer to be the secretary. Don't volunteer to be the note taker. Get some kind of recording device. We all have it on our cell phones, and record it like that and go back and take notes if you need to do that. But do your very best to not take notes, at least not the whole time during the meeting. And then you want to embrace your strengths. In order to embrace those strengths, you've got to identify them, right? You've got to think about whether you're a strong communicator or whether you are someone who brings people together. That's something that Billy is great at, bringing people together and networking. So you have to identify that, reinforce that, find roles within your company or within your daily life where you're able to practice those strengths. And keep in mind that just because something comes easy to you does not mean that it's not of value to someone else. For me, talking like this comes easy to me, less of doing a PowerPoint slide, less being structured. I more feel like I can drive a communication or a conversation, but that doesn't mean I don't still get nervous every single time I do it. I just look at it and I face it and I say, what could go wrong? I'm going to stumble over my words. Guess what? Everybody stumbles over their words. That's one thing that I'm constantly telling my team members is authenticity is always preferred to perfection. You want to be authentic. That's going to break down the barriers and the obstacles of people to come and talk to you. You will seem much more approachable if you are just authentic rather than trying to be perfect. Any questions, comments? Asia, I'm glad I can see your beautiful face.
Thank you. Talking about the note taking and the disengaging, I was like, oh. That is
you don't think about that, right? We don't think about that.
No, not at all. And I'm like, I do that. And it's not because I'm not paying attention or not participating, but for me, like, that's what I do. That's really, it's just what I do. And then not speaking up and saying, hey, I'll be the secretary and, do the minutes or that kind of thing. Like, wow, I need to actually speak more in moments than just being present.
Right. Yeah, being present is really not enough.
Yeah.
When it comes to learning how to be an effective communicator and wanting to lead in business, being present is not enough.
Absolutely.
That's great. I agree, Asia. Same. I'm really bad for that too. And I just wanted to mention one more thing. I really love that you're talking about being vulnerable and authentic, because it really does go so far. And I have a good example. I got a new position this month in leadership, and I had an insecure moment. Like I was like, like that imposter syndrome, and my chest got heavy. And I actually ended up talking to two of the other people that I'm serving on this board with. And I just said it. I said, I'm having a really insecure moment. And, these are my concerns. Right. And as soon as I had those two conversations, it was great. And then it was gone.
It lifted.
Like all that anxiety, it was just gone.
Right.
So I'm going to try to push myself to do that more because I don't think I do it enough. Yeah.
So 2 authors that I want to give you guys, and Billy, maybe you can put them in the comments, are Brene Brown. She talks a good deal about vulnerability, and Asia's shaking her head. She knows her. I would consume every little bit of media, writing, whatever she has put out, I would consume without hesitation. Now, you can't do it all at once because some of it's heavy stuff. But that will absolutely be a game changer for you if you are wanting to, to move forward in a leadership or in a leadership role as a female. The second one would be Glennon Doyle. So she is the one that has the We Can Do Hard Things podcast, and she has a book called Untamed. That is even heavier than Brene Brown, but it's super important in learning how to find your inner voice and make room for that inner voice, honor it, and give it value. You can't give it value by just being present, right? You have to give it value by putting it out there. So that's a fantastic, and it's Glennon is the name, like Glenn on. Next slide, BJ. Thanks, Valerie. Oh, I'm saying thanks to Valerie. Thanks, Billy. So again, I feel we keep talking about this prioritizing the positive internal dialogue, but it really is so important. When you think about confidence, it's not about being perfect. We just said that, right? And it's not about knowing everything. Now, why do we think that that's confidence? Let's just be real, because that's how a lot of men portray it, that they're perfect, they are without fault, or they know everything. No one on this planet knows everything. And I think that goes back to vulnerability being a superpower. As a leader, and as a female leader in particular, we're much more empathetic. I mean, that's just part of our DNA, right? Part of how we're built. You can admit to someone that you don't know something. You can say, I will find that out for you, but I really don't have the answer for that. That someone is going to prefer that 100 times over giving them some kind of false narrative or giving them some kind of filler untruth, right? Nadine.
And I think that actually helps with like the people that you're leading as well.
Absolutely.
If you can come to them and say, hey, this is not my area of forte, like this is not my area of expertise. Can you help me? Blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, I get to be the expert. I get to be the one. And it makes them feel great.
Absolutely, it does. And that fosters trust, that fosters relationships, and that builds that alliance, right? That alliance of accomplices, so that they're going to work harder either for you or with you if they know that you're recognizing their level of expertise. So I work in a manufacturing company. I don't know how to weld, but that's why I have these expert welders that are there. And my dad was of this mindset. He was of this old school generation that you've got to learn how to weld. You can't possibly run this business if you don't know how to weld. No, I have guys out here that know how to weld, and I trust them and I empower them. Now, I know what a really good weld looks like because I've gone out there and I've asked them to show me. I've asked them to teach me, right? And that really employs a much more inclusive and teamwork dynamic that is important, not just for, a rich work experience, a rich everyday daily experience at work, but for productivity as well. But in order for you to get comfortable with your confidence, you have to put the work in on that interpersonal level. So you have to become self-aware. You have to maintain that curiosity in asking something you don't know about it. Ask about it. Ask somebody on your team to show you, like Nadine said. You want to be able to set goals and help others set goals. Take initiative and show that initiative, own it, and persevere until you're able to get to that next level, whether it be in work or in your personal life. And of course, you want to maintain your integrity. And I think that part of being vulnerable and part of being authentic, that's how you're showing that you're maintaining your integrity, right? So again, go back to putting, daily affirmations in your head. I am intelligent and capable. I am confident and strong. I am enough for this day. Sometimes it's just that I am enough. And I'm happy to share with you guys either in the comments or in conversation after about some of the music or podcasts that I listen to, some of the books that I read. We were talking about, Billy, when you were talking about the Mad Men and going in and everybody is a secretary as a female. I'm sure most of you have probably seen, what is the movie with Taraji P. Henson, the NASA movie, the astronauts where the women are building the rocket ships? What's the name of that movie? I forget it, but Nadine knows what it is. She's trying to tell us. Asia knows what it is. Well, that's a great movie that tells you that. There's another book that's out called Lessons in Chemistry.
Hidden Figures.
Yes, Hidden Figures. And that's exactly what we are, right? We're hidden figures. Aren't we tired of hiding? Aren't we tired of just being the ones taking notes or being the ones in the background not speaking up? We have to cut that loose, ladies. We have to let that go and move forward into the new world. And it will be a much better world if we're part of the leadership. Let's just claim that. We know that's true. But another one is Lessons in Chemistry. I started watching it as, I think they have it as a series on Netflix, but it's also a book that's out right now, a bestseller. So I would encourage you to read that. Practice active listening. That's something that I think is difficult for all of us. Active listening in terms of you're not just looking at someone and hearing them and waiting to respond. You're listening actively. So you're taking mental notes, right? And you're listening in a way that you're truly trying to understand them. Not like when you're trying to tell your husband, I really need you to help me with the laundry. I really need you to do the dishes sometimes. He's not active listening when you're telling him that. So do the opposite of that. And then, of course, establish your own core values, and you want to align your goals in accordance with that. So if one of your core values is that you want to be a leader in business that is assertive, but also empathetic, then you've got to feed your mind with media and with content that is going to do that. Next slide, Billy. I feel like we've already gone through so much of this. One thing that also really helps me is practicing yoga or meditation. That's something that shows you that's part of your toolkit to calm your mind and calm your body. So you don't have to go to a gym or go to any place to do that. You can literally sit on your floor or in your bed or in your car and do that. And there's some podcasts that I listen to that help with that as well that I'll share. And you have to realize that just because you're not a confident leader today or in this moment or in this week, every confident leader has fear and has self-doubt. Every single person does. They just act on it anyways. They just see that fear and say, okay, well, I'm going to move forward anyways. I'm going to face that fear. That's how you continue to move forward, right? Does anybody have any comments they want to add? How are we doing on time, Billy? 10 minutes. Okay, let's just move through the rest of the slides kind of quickly so we can make sure we have time for some talk and engagement. So speak directly, right? I think it goes without saying that you want to make eye contact. You want to be sure that your body language is not one that's closed off like this or like this. You're so tired, you're ready to sleep. You need to speak directly to the core issue, loudly. I mean, not screaming at someone, but you want to raise the level of your voice to make sure that it's heard. And clearly, I think for me, if I know something that I have to communicate, and I have to do it clearly and concisely, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to write it down multiple times. I'm going to change around the verbiage and make sure that what I'm trying to get across is coming across in the most clear and concise and direct way possible. And when you are communicating something, you want to make sure you're focusing on solutions. You don't want to just go into presenting the problems and presenting all the concerns. That's not to say they shouldn't be recognized and they shouldn't be presented. They absolutely should. But then you want to move forward with, okay, these are the solutions that I can see. That's going to show that you have initiative. That's going to show you've come prepared and that you're ready to engage as a partner in moving toward those solutions. And then setting boundaries, which I can probably go ahead and assume that that's something that's hard for everybody that's on this call. I know it's hard for me. So you have to be sure that you're setting boundaries and being clear about those boundaries. So you're actually not only doing yourself a favor by setting a boundary, but you're doing other people a favor, because you're teaching them how you want to be communicated with. And you're teaching them how you want to be treated, how you want to be included, right? But setting those up front, clear and fair boundaries are always going to lead to more of a mutual respect and mutual participation in the workplace. People are going to appreciate that. And we feel bad when we set boundaries as women. We just do. But you can't say yes to everything. You'll never get anything done. A lesson I'm still learning myself.
Well, can I add a little something to that?
Of course.
Something that I learned about boundaries, and I'm still working on it every day, is I thought boundaries were harsh, like barbed wire. And they are not. They are not. They're kind, because you're teaching people how you want to be treated and or spoken to. And that takes a lot of practice.
It really does. Okay, next slide. I'd love to hear from you guys on, effective ways that you set boundaries, or ways that maybe it's been difficult for you to set a boundary, and we can talk through that. So when you're merging assertiveness and self-confidence, here are some methods and techniques. And of course, all this is being recorded, so you guys can go back to this slide. But sympathy, right? Anytime that someone is leading with fear, I'm down here at number 6 where it says feel sympathy for bullies. They actually need it, because anytime you're leading with fear, fear-based action is only going to be countered with empathy. Empathy is typically something we as women are very strong at. So that's a strength that we can recognize and develop and employ. But you have to employ it for yourself too, right? Not just as Billy said, we all are very good at reaching back and being sure that we're taking up for or being an ally to someone else. You have to be your own ally first and foremost. And have faith in those abilities that you have. And ultimately, they're going to work if you allow them to. So I think we went through most of this other stuff, being seen and heard, eye contact, and setting boundaries. But we can move on. So building relationships and earning respect. This just goes back to what we were talking about before, getting involved, joining groups and associations that are related to your line of work. I also suggest joining groups that maybe are not related to your line of work, because you're going to have someone that's also thinking outside that box. And of course, new networking opportunities and learning from like-minded people. Showcase your skills. You don't have to short sell yourself. We as women tend to do that way too often. You want to publicize the work. If you've taken initiative and you've come up with an idea, voice that it is your idea. Don't allow someone to take that from you. And then, of course, be authentic. You want to find and exist in work environments where you can be your true self and connect with people. That is very difficult, probably for all of us. It definitely is for me, even as the leader in this company. I still feel like that's something I'm constantly working on. And I'll probably work more on making sure that the environment is conducive for everyone else to be their true self and everyone else to be able to connect with people on a personal level. But we have to look out for ourselves as well. And then don't be scared to reach for the stars, right? To reach for your full potential. Obviously, investing in education. And that doesn't have to mean going back to school and getting your master's degree or your PhD. That can be something as simple as, subscribing to whatever magazine may be the most relevant. I find a lot of different, and I'm a reader. I'm old, I guess. So everything I read can't be on my phone or can't be on a screen. I like to read an actual physical book or magazine. But that allows you to brush up on your new skills. That allows you to see what innovation is out there and research and learn more about it. Be curious about it. It doesn't have to be going back to school and getting a formal education, although sometimes there's a place for that as well, right? And take risks. Sometimes when we're scared, that fear, we think that fear may be telling us, don't take this next step. Don't do that. But I think we need to flip the script on that and try to look at fear as a misguided protection, oftentimes. Now, I'm not saying, like, if you're scared to jump out of a plane, just jump out without a harness or anything. Don't do that. But if it's something that is something part of your normal everyday activity, or something that is part of what is what is going to allow you to get to the next level, that just means that you're outside of your comfort zone. That fear is protecting you in your comfort zone. We all know great things don't happen inside that comfort zone. So you have to be ready to go out and take calculated risks. I tell my guys here at Lawrence Brothers all the time, I do not expect you to not fail. If you are not failing, you are not doing anything. You have to fail your way to success. And that's something that I'm constantly ingraining in the minds of my kids. You know, when they come home and somebody doesn't want to be their friend, or they fell on the playground and they were so embarrassed. Well, you're learning from that. That's part of life. You're learning to fail and to learn from that mistake so that you can not make it again and move on to the next level. And last but not least, don't doubt your ability to shine. When you have that self-confidence and that belief, you're going to walk in the room and you're going to be able to feel the energy shift into a positive, bright light. That's what you want to go after. And you don't want to let anybody dim that light. And if they're going to call you a bitch because of it, so be it. Take it as a compliment. Say thank you even. Thank you. That was exactly what I was going for. Or thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. You know, let's see how we can work together, right? It may not have to be as catty as that was what I was going for, but sometimes it calls for that. You know, sometimes you want to be sure that your voice is heard and that you're not going to allow them to put out your light. And in order to do that, you've got to make a list of your strengths. So that's one thing I would challenge each of you with. Two action steps. Go sit down, pull out a journal or a piece of paper or whatever, and make a list of your strengths, and then dive deep into how those strengths best serve you. And find a couple of new ways that those strengths can serve you in your professional life or in your personal life. And then find 3 new ways to feed yourself positive content. You're feeding your brain just like you would be feeding your body. So instead of, surfing on social media for an hour or an hour and a half a day, give yourself 20 minutes to do that. And then step away, set a timer, step away and find a podcast that you like. Find a book that you like to read. Find a movie. Brene Brown actually even has a Netflix series that you can watch that is really impactful. And I'm happy to share any of that stuff with you. I think the next slide shares my contact information and my cell numbers on here. So if you guys wanted to reach out to me as a follow-up for this conversation, I'm happy to continue it.
There you go, Nadine. You don't have to stalk her out. She gave it to you. She welcomed it. Yeah. How much time do we have? I can't see my time on here.
11:59.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I do in to respect everybody's time, unless that someone has something they're just dying to ask, I'll give that minute to you. Anybody? Nadine, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll wrap it up real quick. You guys, thank you guys all for joining. I love it when everybody joins every week and we're getting to know each other and it's more comfortable. And, Melanie did a fantastic job. This was a really fun session that we had. So I'll send everything. I'm having trouble with, I can't even get into my email right now because we changed our name. So I'm hoping we can get it done today, but I owe you some sessions. So all of that will go out. And thank you so much, Melanie. Really appreciate your time. We know you're very busy, and I just really enjoyed it. I had a great time today.
Well, thank you guys. I feel like I talked too much and I apologize for that, but I hope you guys came away with a couple of nuggets anyways. And I'm serious. You're welcome to reach out to me via email. If you want to shoot me a text, I may not, respond immediately, but I promise I'll get back to you. If you text me, just tell me who you are from the webinar, and I'll be sure to get back with you and we can brainstorm and bounce things off of one another. And I cannot go without saying, if you don't have a mentor, find a mentor. Find a mentor and be a mentor.
That's right.
Will be life changing. Nadine is a mentor already.
And understand that what you did for us today was you gave us some more of our power, and so like your power, you shared it with us and you gave us inspiration and strength. So thank you for doing that
That
for
was
us.
my intent, and that just gave me goosebumps, Nadine. Thank you for that.
Ugh, girl, I'm going to stalk you.
Well, I'm not hard to find. I'm right there.
So you guys make sure to join us next week on the 24th. It'll be Tuesday again at 11 o'clock. And we're going to be talking about the importance of public speaking and leadership. It's with Sonia Van Hook, who is a Toastmaster in Abington. Melanie, I was thinking we should go to Toastmasters together and take Toastmasters is where you meet every week, but then they teach you how to public speak, and everyone has to do like a presentation. And so we're close. But anybody else that wants to go, let me know. We'll all go down together. I think it would be a great thing to experience. But Sonia will tell us more about it on Tuesday, and how public speaking and being comfortable with that is how that can be related to leading an organization or business. Yeah. So I look forward to seeing you guys. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.